What's up? It is 2 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon. Thanks for tuning in to Cannabis Legalization News, where we explain marijuana laws so you can change them. Today, we're going to be talking about bills around the country: Oklahoma, New York, Hawaii, Wyoming. We're also going to get into a little bit of international cannabis news. So let's just get right into it. Hey, Miggy.
Basketball Jones. Hey, Google. Stop. What did you think of Tommy Chong? We just got done recording with Tommy Chong. Thank you for joining us in another episode of Cannabis Legalization News. My name's Tom. You can find me on Instagram at Cannabis Industry Lawyer.
I'm Miggy. You can find me everywhere.
And phone call has been hung up on. So, man,
That was great, dude. I mean, we learned so much.
So much about Tommy Chong that you guys are going to want to hit the like button, hit the subscribes, and then you will get notice because we will be coming live with Chong. Well, not live, but we can premiere it, and then we can hit up in the live chat. So welcome to all the members. We're a member, so please feel free to join our site. Tomorrow, we're going to have the first of our exclusive member content out. I'm doing a webinar on New Jersey. Then what I'll do is I'll post it unlisted on our YouTube channel, but I'll select it so it'll be for members only. And so that's just one of the benefits of joining. It's lounge member, and then the next one up is Miggy. Miggy's next.
And then I'll start making more content. You know, I've been just hyping up for this morning, like the 9 a.m. conversation with Tommy Chong, like 9 a.m. I think we probably was just waking up. Yeah, but didn't it seem like he was just waking up too? Like, bro,
well, he is in LA. He is in LA.
But we're on the same time, in the same. And I'm on the East Coast or West Coast too. So I mean, I feel him. I mean, I imagine Tommy Chong mornings are like get up whenever the fuck you want and do what you want.
Well, it sounds like he kind of gets up pretty early.
Yeah, right. The routine. Oh my god.
Yeah, and then you were going to find out when you watch the Chong episode. He is an inventor. What is he inventor of? We should have this, but this isn't going to be a test. We are going to play Name That Strain a little bit later, but it was a pretty busy week in cannabis legalization news.
Yeah.
A lot of things did not yet happen, but they might be happening here toward the end of the week. So why don't we get into it?
Well, marijuana legalization bills died in 3 states this week as others move forward. Marijuana legalization bills died in, Maryland, Hawaii, and Wyoming.
Well, I think we all saw the Wyoming one coming. Maryland, that's too bad. We had not been reporting on that, so we really didn't think that Maryland was going to come to fruition, to be honest. And then Wyoming, clearly didn't. Hawaii, that is kind of surprising. Hawaii, I figure, because they have such a culture there, like Roger Christie, Woody Harrelson, even what's his name, Willie Nelson, I think, had a place out in Hawaii. So they have a vibrant vegetarian and cannabis community in Hawaii. And
right. But that's the same thing with Southern California. People thought California was going to be the first state to legalize just because this whole sunshine hippie preconception. It doesn't exist. That's not real.
No, in New York, not New York, California took a lot longer to legalize simply because of the illegal culture that's there. They're like, hey, let's not mess with the good thing here. I'm being able to make some money on a fairly not that dangerous kind of way. And still, a lot of the difficulties in California is trying to convince them to get licensed.
Yeah. It says, Miggy, your mic good? Is my mic good? Can you hear me?
Yeah, your mic. You sound great, man. You sound great.
Okay.
And so, but one of the problems was when we were with Chong, we were using Zoom, and so I was using my computer as the microphone. My bad. But let's get into some news articles. What else are we reporting?
Let's see. Here's an echo. So. Maybe I thought I had everything canceled out. I don't know. What a morning. Biden won't end marijuana-related White House firings until federal legalization, press secretary says. And this story was brought out to by our boys over in Illinois. President Biden could theoretically end the policy of firing White House staff over marijuana use himself. Press Secretary Jen Psaki said on Wednesday, but that's not happening as long as cannabis is federally legal. They take the weak stance, and that's the problem with policy makers. And there's always this weak position that you can. It's easier to say no than to say, well, let's give it a chance. It's fucking ridiculous.
Well, if you say no, you don't have to do anything new.
Yeah, is that what we're advocating for?
Yeah. That's what they're advocating for. they're advocating for continuing to arrest and fire people. So I'm not sure who was let go at the Biden White House, but if it was you and you're joining us, hey, drop us a line in the comments. And then also don't forget to register for our webinar. Tomorrow we're doing that webinar for our members, Jersey episode. So you can sign up. We'll drop that as hopefully the first comment. And so hopefully the first comment, we can't put our links in our descriptions because that's gotten us grounded before on the channel, but we can try to put it as the first comment. We still have about 30 seats left, and we'll probably do another email blast. So don't forget to sign up for our stuff over at cannabislegalizationnews.com. You can subscribe to our newsletter there.
Yeah, those people really should reach out. Reach out to Marijuana Mama. Reach out to us. We would love to have your conversation as far as like how it happened that you got fired, and I think it's unfortunate though, kind of like with Lowell Egmeyer, the first cannabis activist who spoke out. He went to jail for a year and then said, okay, I'm done advocating. I'm hoping these guys didn't feel comfortable enough to put it out there, get fired and say, okay, I'm done being a responsible adult or whatever. Now I got to fake it again. Ridiculous. Right. I really hope they speak out.
Yep, that'd be great. And then, it's people don't like to speak out because it's going to jeopardize them. And so like people are just way less likely to stick their neck out if it's going to result in them being punished or them taking like a lack of either income or respect or anything. And so that whole judgmental aspect of it. You know what I didn't know about Tommy Chong? And this is something that you're going to find out if you tune in on Sunday for our Chong episode. He's a religious man.
Yeah, well, I think he's more spiritual and religious. I mean, he's not. I mean, he does definitely. He was raised when he told his story, like, and that was another thing, right? Like that was funny because did you hear my question? Because I think he misinterpreted what I was saying,
we're going to try to weave it together, but then there was it wasn't the best. Like I'm asking questions, you're asking questions. We both wanted to ask a question at the same time because it's like, what? How'd you do all the stuff?
Yeah.
You find out how he did all this stuff. It was fascinating.
Well, and plus, Tommy Chong was like a grandpa on Zoom. I think is awesome. Like, and that's where when I asked him about like if they could do like a Cheech and Chong, and what you get to find out. You need to find out because he answers, and it made me cry.
Yeah. Oh.
Yes, though, could legalize weed if it wanted to. A bill filed by Dallas-based State Representative Jessica Gonzalez would give counties and municipalities the choice to legalize recreational weed by order of ordinance. Neat. House Bill 3248 could also impose a 10% tax on weed products. A tenth of the tax would go toward regulation. Another 10% would pay for cannabis testing and quality control. That's interesting. It's the first time I heard about a state reinvesting in its own. That makes sense.
Testing and quality control. Testing and quality control would be great. And then 20% going to participating local governments for oversight. And the rest goes to the Foundation School Fund. And that's right. Because the Texas governor, who was our president, that did ask the question, is our children learning? Can finally now help pay for those children's educations by legalizing cannabis in Texas. And shout out to Texas Normal. They came on our show earlier. Hopefully they're being very, very active and vocal, trying to get HB 3248 through Texas. I'm going to put that probability of passing at 5%.
Well, this is just for a city, though. So how does that work? How do you pass a bill in the state for just your city, or it just gives counties
it allows options? Dallas could legalize weed if it wants to. A bill filed by Dallas-based state rep Jessica Gonzalez would give counties and municipalities the choice to legalize recreational weed by ordinance or order. And so now it's going to be similar to California, Michigan, any other state that legalizes, in the sense that municipalities don't have to legalize it. So it's just like, hey, if you want to legalize it, in the 40 states that don't follow Dillon's rule and they actually have home rule communities, I just don't think that you can legalize it without letting the state say, no, counties can go ahead and legalize it now. But there's just no way they're going to leave it up to the counties. It'd be awesome if Texas legalizes that way.
Sure. And I was just rethinking through my interpretation of the headline, because I guess Dallas is just going to be legalizing it pretty much. Like that would be, I guess Dallas would be a place to be.
No. Well, if Dallas, again, like no cities in Texas could legalize it, this could pass. No municipalities legalize. It just allows the municipalities to legalize, which is fascinating. I don't necessarily think that I mean,
Well,
that's one way.
Dallas
That's
has
one
the
way.
most opera houses. Dallas is very cultured. Like you would, this perception that we think about blue and red and places like Texas. There's definitely a reason why we think of Texas in a certain way, but they're also up in the 21st century. They're with us in the present times. Not
Well, I
all.
don't know. I mean, like Texas is just a very conservative bastion, but now that there's so much stuff coming out of Oklahoma and the lower regulation aspect of the cannabis, marketplace for medical in Oklahoma, maybe that's going to spur Texas ahead. I just don't think that Texas is ready to legalize it yet. It'd be interesting to see polling data on it, but Texas is fairly conservative.
They did go, yeah, but they went purple this past election. It was so close, right? Do you remember, like, everybody going, Texas is about to flip? Is this going to be a thing? But then, of course, old thinking takes over, and people are just like you said, they don't want to try anything new. They're just like, blah, 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 I'm going to go all Republican. Blah, 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 I'm going to go all Democrat.
Yep.
Like, there's no.
We're not going to change anything. Everything's fine. By the way, another mass shooting. It's not the time to talk about it. Whatever we do, don't change anything. Legalizing weed, it's not the time to legalize weed. At least they say that to us. They basically do. I mean, that's essentially what the Biden administration's saying. They're like saying, no, we're not going to hire them back. It's not the time to legalize weed. We have to go take care of gun control, or we have to go take care of the coronavirus, or we have to go take care of every other issue except for legalizing weed.
Meanwhile, in Texas's neighbor, new Oklahoma bill would allow Texans to access medical marijuana program.
What?
Right?
Yes. If Oklahoma House Bill 2022 passes the state Senate, medicinal cannabis will be as accessible to Texans as legal gambling is. The bill would open the state's medical weed program to residents from all 50 states. Under the current program, only people with medical licenses from the other states qualify for the program. Additionally, the bill extends the length of time states qualify for the program. So a medical weed license is valid from 30 days to 2 years for non-residents. Guess who's going to Oklahoma after he gets his corona shot?
Seriously, though. I've been telling you, Oklahoma has so much promise because Oklahoma has the model that Washington had. It's just a real fair market. If you want to have great weed at low prices, have a fair market, but Oklahoma Rep Scott Fettgator, who filed a bill, told the Oklahoman there are patients out there that need longer opportunities, whether they have cancer or some other medical issues. So I felt it was necessary to just extend that out so they're not having to constantly renew the license. I think that's great, but there's the other line reason why. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. I mean, why else is not Vermont?
Sells a lot of weed. Illinois sells a lot of weed to non-Illinois residents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm sure. Oh, go ahead, bro.
Oh, no, that's it. I mean, like Oklahoma's got a large border with Texas. I'm assuming it's not just all cattle.
Yes. What else we got going on? Oh, New York lawmakers overcome marijuana legalization impasse and expect bill in next day or so, says Marijuana Moment. Top New York senator said the lawmakers and the governor have successfully resolved an outstanding issue in marijuana legalization negotiations related to impaired driving, setting the age for formal introduction of new bill text within days. Really,
well, that's fantastic. Again, like the driving is often a sticking point. The underage use and criminality was a sticking point for New Jersey. Yeah. Again, don't forget to sign up for our webinar on New Jersey. It's going to be exclusive for our member content. So if you join as one of our members, you'll get the webinar. Then I'm going to recapture a lot of it and create smaller vignette videos about the specific license types that are out there. New Jersey has 6 main license types and 3 sub-license types thereon. So it's a really interesting rubric that they got brewing out there. And I'm not sure if New Jersey is going to then kind of be replicated by New York and Virginia and Pennsylvania, or how it's going to play out. But, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, no, I got something for you that we, I was just on the Chill Noise podcast, and something I was pondering yesterday about the way we infrastructure the legal market, right? The way recreational exists and the players, right? All the big players are all these conglomerate companies, Cresco's, Tilray's, whatever. Yep. You're familiar with the concept, right? Buy local, how your dollar stays more. 90% will stay, right?
Yeah, that's the name of the cannabis company that I made up, that I use as my cannabis company, Local Cannabis.
Okay, so then, like, all these Tilrays and shit, not technically are local. If you think about the funding, because all that money still got to funnel to the top to pay for the Tilray lawyers and the whatnots. Like, the infrastructure really is not for American people, like the general public.
Well, again, it's not even for investors. There's no return on equity in most of these. And so like there's no dividends that they're paying out. Most of the common shareholders aren't the preferred shareholders. They just kind of get appreciation of value. But, since I did that cannabis stocks episode, the cannabis stocks are just getting killed, and they were getting killed today, but I don't know where my sell is. Otherwise I'd check the tickers. Let's discuss a little bit more before we catch a 420 somewhere, a little bit more about the New York law, because we'll probably be hopping back on as soon as we have like a vote one way or another. Because like, shit, man, they haven't passed it in either house, have they? They haven't passed it in the House. They haven't passed it in the Senate. Cuomo hasn't been accused lately. And so like, hopefully that's getting behind, or like that's becoming a less of a pressing news story, but you never know. I mean, like, I couldn't believe how Trump would have like a catastrophe. And then how does he get the last catastrophe off the headlines? New catastrophe.
But that's the manipulation, the showmanship, right? It's the shell game of bullshit. Except they're just funneling so much crap at you. You're like, how do I decipher which crap to actually be mad about? Like,
and then they like, look over here, look over here, look over here. They're just trying to whatever. There's purple elephants over here. Don't think about them purple elephants. I mean, they're trying to get you to look at something else besides what's going on with them. So I don't know how long it's going to take for the Senate and the House to both pass the legislation, but hopefully we're going to be going on the news here soon. We need to find out when the New York legislative session ends. Typically, legislative sessions end in the late spring, the Memorial Day holiday. Same with New Mexico. We're probably going to be jumping on when New Mexico legalizes, because their governor, and this might actually be one of our stories later, so I don't necessarily want to take the lid off that.
But this is how sexy the process is, right? We need to find out the schedule. You need to know like the agenda for those days. Like, this is how legalization happens. You have to follow the goddamn routine and protocols, and you'll have a better understanding of knowing, okay, well, like for us with the home grow bill, it finally died on March 18th. Like, we know, like, that was the last time that committee met, was never brought to the floor. All of a sudden, you're just like, all right, great. Now, the question is, how do you get your bill heard in that committee? How do you force those people in that committee to push forward your agenda? That's why I'm not holding my breath on the Schumer type showmanship, but if you want to do the right thing,
something is coming, according to Schumer. We got such good viewing on that. Like, we have like over 14,000 views on that Schumer episode, and the only thing it tells you is nothing. So here's a little bit more nothing about New York. State Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins, who is a Democrat, said on Tuesday that the legislature is really, really, really close on marijuana. Following negotiations with executive staff office over recent weeks, we have gotten past the impasse of the impaired driving. All right, so has that been reflected in both houses? Because they have to pass the same bill, and then it can go be signed by Governor Andrew Cuomo, who has ceded to them two other key components. One, allowing adults to cultivate cannabis for personal use. So home grow is coming, hopefully, to New York, home grow. And then also another one concerning how to allocate marijuana tax revenue for social equity purposes, which is big, because very often the revenue is the only thing that doesn't ever get like screwed up in the social equity equation.
I mean, Nicholas has a great point, though. It's gaslighting, like politics and the agendas, and like fucking Kamala Harris saying that she smoked weed with listening to Tupac, but then here we are where you changed your opinion to side with Biden, or all these guys are just full of shit.
Well, hang on. You know what that means? When it's full of shit, then you feel stressed out, and you look at the clock. It's 20 past the hour. You know that it is.
Pencil down.
You know what we haven't played yet this week?
Name that strain.
We should probably start playing Name the Strain after it's 420 somewhere. because that allows us to talk to the audience to make sure that they have sufficient amount of time to name that strain. And I would also like to apologize to the people listening in their cars while they are commuting for the wonderful commentary and content on this. So let's get a picture of the strain. There it is, as for description purposes for those of you listening at your cars at home, which is kind of strange that you would listen to our podcast in your car, but still, it is a beautiful flowered strain that has, how would you describe its
I love this is a glistening beauty. So this one has
beauty.
I mean, it's got the trichomes, the white,
structure. The trichome structure,
the red hairs.
Mm-hmm.
This is all encompassing, like old school looking bud.
It's frosty. It's very frosty.
Mm-hmm. I wonder how dense it is. Like that'd be a thing, right?
It looks dense, pretty nicely dense. Well, I'm not sure. We can't really get our hands on it, so we don't know what the smell profile is. But it does look pretty darn delicious. And so if you have a nice tasty nug at home, it kind of looks like that. Why don't you go pay that tasty nug a visit? And then if you have a concept of what that strain is, Mr. Dad is guessing Sour D. Teddy Spaghetti is going with Orange Dream. Let's see. He is saying, how about Q&A? I've never heard of that strain, Q&A. And then there's some gelato, some super lemon skunk. All right, Miggy, if you see the person who has gotten, because like this is coming to us from, well, we can get into the hints after we do some more news. If you see anybody who gets it close, let us know that they win. Name that strain.
We got a second hint, and then Lauren, I need you to type me the name of the thing because I didn't read the pre-information.
Don't worry about it. I'll just go to the next article while you're doing that stuff. So Nikki Fried. Legalizing cannabis solves a lot of problem and creates none. This is out of the Tallahassee reports. So the Tallahassee report is saying that Nikki Fried is the Florida Agricultural Commission and a former cannabis lobbyist whose fiance created a cannabis company with Fred's father, recently tweeted that legalizing cannabis solves lots of problems and creates none. She serves for the Steve Stewart at Tallahassee reports, then goes into a bunch of Reefer Madness reports. We can get to that bunch of Reefer Madness reports in a moment.
But like, this is the one time that Florida's not being Florida.
Oh, no. Florida is about to be Florida. Let's get back to the Reefer Madness reports. So in Reefer Madness reports, several reports show increases in hospitalizations and suicides due to the legalization of marijuana. In 2019, a top U.S. government mental health official noted that it's time for Americans to understand there are substantial risks with marijuana. So as you can see, what they purported to say, like, oh, we're fine, this is going to be great. As soon as they said that, then it's just here's a whole bunch of crap.
Well, that's well, I mean, because she's from Florida, and that's why I was saying Florida not be Florida. But of course, that's why I also sent you the report, because the bullshit. Like, now here's the why she's wrong part. Like, you make full sentences, and I know it's English, and I know it's like there's a pronoun and a verb and a period, but it's still empty as shit. There's still no. And someone believes this. Some little old lady that fucking gets scammed by Indian scammers about how the IRS is going to freeze her social security number. That's who believes this shit. know?
Hang on, though. She also pointed out that hospitalizations more than doubled for serious mental health disorders among 18 to 25-year-olds nationally from 2012 to 2018. Can we fact check that? She cited a study in July that shows a 77% increase in suicide deaths from 2010 to 2015 amongst Colorado students aged 10 to 19 with marijuana in their systems.
Yeah.
So, if anybody fact checks these, or does she just go with them?
Well, it's not her. These are all from the writer. Is the writer a female?
No, it was Steve Stewart at the Tallahassee Reporter.
Yeah, Steve Stewart's a dick. The AG lady, I mean, she made a point. She said nothing wrong happened. Like, she's like, legalize weed, and the end of the world hasn't happened. Like, why is this guy referencing other states and shit when you can just look at your own state? Because you have a medical laws. You already have that in place. How long has it been now? A year? 2 years?
Who?
For Florida's medical program.
Florida's medical program has been there since 2018, I think.
Okay, so like, there's your thing. Now look at your local. That's the problem. It's that shell game, right? Let's look over here, even though we have a program too, but that's not happening. This bullshit that I'm telling you isn't happening here, but it could. even though it's not?
Perhaps. I'm still trying to find the documentation, and so like now I'm on the official government site, and I'm trying to find like any type of graphs that would show this going up. But they do have some publications. It says these tables present information. I'm like, okay, where are these tables? Where are the tables? Maybe it's the tab. Detailed tables, PDF.
Probably the same scientist that Giuliani uses.
Giuliani does not use scientists. You know that.
And the pillow guy. I'm just saying, like, they came up with all these charts and fake ass numbers, and you're like,
I still haven't gotten to the charts. There's still no charts.
Shit.
And so I'm trying to find charts, but the problem is the charts. They just aren't there.
Let's see though. Eleanor are we in the same one? Yeah. Eleanor McCann's Katz, Department of Health and Human Services, said it's time for Americans to understand there's substantial risk with marijuana. It's a non-toxic plant, lady. Like Coca-Cola is more damaging than cannabis. Like you pour Coca-Cola on a piece of wood, it'll eat through the wood, the acidic properties. It'll eat through your teeth if you had your teeth picking them out and soaking in. Cannabis will make you more flexible. I don't know what to say. Oh, by the way, I'm sad I didn't get to show Tommy this.
What was that?
My grinder.
Ah, what's the grinder do?
It grinds. But I'm just saying it's a Tommy Chung grinder. It's I mean, while we're talking about bullshit, I'm just excited that like we talked Tommy Chung today. Like, come on, my day's done. I'm done today.
No, it's and I shouldn't be trying to research these things, but whenever I read studies about things, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going to start manipulating the manipulations, and there ain't nothing that you can do like manipulate studies, especially if the data set is huge. The data set's large enough you can make it say pertinent or anything, provided that you control the data how you want it to.
Well, looking at because you're like me. We do deep dives in actual. What? We got it. Got it. Got it. Jack
Harrer, the man, the myth, the legend, and the terpinolene dominant strain.
He was an indica guy. He didn't like it. This is a sativa. Like he's an indica guy or was. R.I.P. Good on you, dude. But this writer that the Nikki Fried, because she's a Department of Agriculture, I believe is her job in Florida. She actually has Florida Agricultural Commissioner is what she is. Mm-hmm. And this writer, dude, has got 1, 2, 3, 5 like just negative articles about her. Like, again, this is the bullshit reporting, non-factual. Let me clickbait you. Oh, Florida.
Let me keep marijuana illegal, because if I let somebody come onto the scene that's competing against my opioid drugs, I'll make less money. Think about the profits. Think about the children.
Oh, it's always about the children.
It's always about it's the thing is, and that's one thing we didn't talk about. We talked to Tommy Chong about how people used to always smoke in the 50s and how parties were disgusting back then, and the government supported it. We didn't touch on how that was true, and that was kind of the marching orders. Remember in the 90s when the tobacco executives swore to Congress that their products did not addict and kill people? That was in the 90s that they were still swearing to Congress they didn't addict and kill people. If there's a profit motive involved, people will go down with the ship. They will believe whatever they need to believe, so the profits just keep coming.
Yeah, I mean, that's my championing for capitalism, true capitalism, because as someone who works in quality assurance, you enable a lot of messed up things when you incentivize competition for actual quality assurance, which it shouldn't be. It should be just a simple yes or no, this is good or bad. There's no gray area, And of course, though, when we have people locked up behind bars for a plant that's legal in 16 states, our nation's capital, it's all about, because that's the process that we got. When in actuality, it's just pure bullshit. No matter how you look at it, this is just wrong. That's a thing. That's our blight of American justice. When Tommy got into that smoking story, I think we didn't get more into it because he led into a really dark, sad story that really you should check it out. The effects of tobacco smoking, right? This was encouraged by the government. It's okay. That's why someone pointed out, why do we have smoke breaks but not drink breaks? And it's because it was so common for tobacco smoking that your 10-minute smoke break is a negotiation society made with tobacco companies for losing their ads and all this other shit. Like, just like why prohibition for alcohol didn't work. People were so going to do it anyways. And, you enable the bad shit. You enable the criminality.
Well, let's keep going with that criminality, bad shit stuff. Cops caught an amputee with $400 in medicinal weed. So they took his car and his cash. Vice News is reporting that 23-year-old, it's Quan. Is that going to be like Quan? Holt has been charged or treated like a drug kingpin, but he still has not been indicted on any charges. So they've just made him late and took his shit, which of course, why?
Yeah, and the plant, the weed, period. The weed was medicinal. The 23-year-old father of two bought it from a website called Be Pain Free Global after being hit by an 18-wheeler truck more than 2 years ago. So he thought he was doing the right thing because he's online. Mm-hmm. There's a website. You would think so nobody nefarious is going to have a blatant website. Like, you got to go on a dark web.
They are. I'm sure. Like, if we thought that. The non-regulated California dispensaries that were all listed on weed maps before they cracked down were a thing. Just wait for federal legalization. The number of unlisted or unlicensed cannabis sales online is going to be obscene.
I'm at their website right now and find and buy any medicinal cannabis online at affordable prices. So yeah, it seems like this is going to probably be like a you have to sign up for an account and everything, dude. This poor guy got caught up in some bullshit. But in Phoenix, Alabama, where he lives, weed for any purpose is still illegal. I wonder if this is just a CBD weed. It might not even be real weed. Like, what? And cops arrested him on a serious drug charges last year. They also took his Dodge Challenger, nearly $6,000 in cash, and his licensed goods for good measure. Why? And Mike Segrest, Holt's attorney, told Vice News, it was almost a perfect storm. If you look at stereotyping, he's a young black man that's in a flashy car. He's got guns, he's got money, and he's got drugs on him. So, drugs. There's an automatic assumption. Hey, he must be dealing.
In Alabama, like, the law is that they are drugs. And so that's one of the things, shout out to Alabama. Let's get some medical, cannabis laws in your books so that you can actually help people out as opposed to like arresting them. Yeah.
But if this was bought on a website with the CBD premise, though, isn't it still federally legal? Isn't it still... don't forget thumbs up. But is it still like how are they enabled? And that's the thing about prohibition. It enables this. It enables you to take this thing that's not a crime, especially federally with the CBD shit, and then say it's a crime. And then this poor guy doesn't have the funding to fight, lawyers' costs, the paperwork, the know-how to get his shit out. That's
Yep. In Alabama, where Holt lives, 55% of civil forfeiture cases where criminal charges are filed relate to cannabis. Remember civil forfeiture cases? It's where they take your shit and then they try to see how well you can defend yourself. It's one of those deals where it's like, hey, you can't use that money. That's evidence.
And Holt's chiropractor was the one who suggested to check out Be Pain Free Global, the website that offers the telehealth providers in California who can recommend medical cannabis and wellness products to them. So, when I posted this article in our group, the Facebook group, Free THC, some of the comments, and this is something that always happens with activism. Like, in my opinion, always be true. No matter what amount, no matter what it is, you're not guilty. It's like getting caught with tomatoes.
Sugar. So tomatoes, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so some of the comments were like, well, you should have known better. But you don't know better when you try to do the right thing. He went to a website. He got the prescription. He thought, and that's the problem too with even legal states, like with my friend Adela, who's facing prosecution, even though she could be a viable patient. Like, you prosecute people, and there's no reason, there's no why, there's no saving anybody. It's heartbreaking. Like, this guy tried everything he do to do the right thing, and it's just, It's bullshit that
like,
people.
and then it's bullshit as well that, this is almost reminds me of that poor guy that got like taken down by Verano and then had to go to federal court to sue him. So like, if this is a fly by night, or like if this is a gray market operator in California that has medical recommendations and they're shipping medical weed out of California to people in Alabama, that's something the DEA could go after. That's stuff where it's illegal, and then it's and so that they're doing that and they're that brazen. I mean, it reminds me of the article that was going around. It was a little financial. Remember that? Was it called Ease? Was that the payment platform?
Oh,
purported payment platform, the Triple P program, the purported payment platform for cannabis, and there ain't none. And so like when this company was coming up, I was kind of, well, that doesn't sound right. And then the guy got popped. I'm like, nah, that does sound right. So do we have a copy of that article?
Yeah, because that with the it would have to do with payment, right? The codes.
Yeah, SDNY jury convicts 2 of trafficking or tricking banks on pot prosecutions. And this is a direct result of, let me flip this over to Lauren and see if she could share it. It's just going to be a blurb, which is, of course, fine, simply because, that's kind of how it is. And so let's go to that article real quick. That's SDNY. That's the Southern District of New York. Jury convicts 2 of tricking banks on pot transactions. And so that one is the there it is. So these 2 people, and then they put their names and how old they are. Scheming to defraud banks by tricking them into processing more than 150 million of transactions on behalf of San Francisco-based Ease, a cannabis selling app nicknamed the Uber of pot. And so when this sucker was coming out, I was always very, very confused by how they were doing it. They were saying like, you can use your credit card to pay for weed. And I'm like, but how did you get around the merchant codes? Turns out that they didn't. They were just committing fraud, and that's why they've been convicted of this bank fraud. But then here's the problem.
Yeah.
So the MORE Act passes. Did they get a pardon? Did they get expunged? Is this a crime then?
Well, my question too is like, so my question, as you mentioned the word fraud and defraud, right? Fraud, doesn't that imply that there was money lost? There was lost, like, it seems like they're guilty of just having different paperwork, like not using the right paperwork.
It's fraud doesn't necessarily mean the money has to be lost, which is great if like the money's not lost. Like if they didn't spend all the money, but like with the credit card transaction type of thing, that $150 million, that was $150 million of the product. And then the transaction fees were probably like 5-10%, like something like that, and so there's that. But then the way that the fraud statutes are written, there's what they call elements of the cause of action. And so each element must be proven by with fraud, it's still by a preponderance of the evidence. And so I think, like they don't have to prove it by any more than 51%. And so the way that they find it is this intentional lying. So the fraud is the lie to allow the transaction to occur. If they didn't lie to the credit card processors to say it was something besides what it actually was, they couldn't have done it.
But is it lying when that's not an option for you? Like, is it lying when there's no check on there that says medical cannabis or recreational cannabis? It's not lying.
You're not allowed to sell it.
But they are.
Well, I understand. And now, you kind of are in the shoes of this Mr. Advocan and Mr. Wiegand, who have now been found guilty on single count of bank fraud conspiracy. Now, you see, they didn't get them on complete bank fraud, but then they still did get them on the conspiracy of the bank fraud.
But then, so is this going to be a huge ass fine, or is this loss of time? I mean, either way, it's not right. But what happens to these guys?
Oh, we'll have to see. Let's see. Custody. Let's see. German citizen. Wiegand was a German citizen. So June 25th is a sentencing date.
And one's a non-American. That's
yes, and that was one of the things that they were using to get around it. And I'm like, well, okay, that's a house of cards. And then the guy came through LAX or something like that.
Oh, that's right.
He got arrested. Yeah.
Do you think, though, they could do this to an American, though? Would they put somebody in behind bars? Like, would it cause a stink, though, you think, though?
Yeah.
Like, it should, I think, would cause a stink.
It's like textbook, like it's textbook bank fraud what they did. And so, I mean, like it's one of the easiest crimes that they probably had to prove. Yeah.
But here's why I get frustrated, because like I said before, anything with cannabis is not a crime. So if these guys had an option to,
it's not a crime in
morality wise,
objective universal truth.
Right.
It is a crime under our imperfect federal laws, and our imperfect federal laws are not congruent with universal truth. And that's why we're here at Cannabis Legalization News. Don't forget to smash some likes and subscribe, and tune in on Sunday with Tommy Chong. But yeah, and so that's kind of like that edge that's there, in the sense that they defined cannabis to be this poison, even though it's not. And then they defined what money laundering or bank fraud is, and they fulfilled it according to the myth. America doesn't really exist. We just made it up with laws, and they're just old, and somebody signed them with a quill and stuff, and it's like, wow, it's so enforceable if it's signed with a quill. And that's just what we kind of have to remember. There's a difference between universal objective truth, where you're right, no possession is a crime, this is complete bullshit, and the federal laws.
Yeah, and then also the interaction. So like, it's just amazing to me that we still have this archaic bullshit of hurting lives, but at the same time, we got nanotech involved. Like,
nanotech
scientists breaking this thing down.
Weed, and still, like, we are in the future and the past at the same time.
You know what I'm saying, man? Like, parallel dimensions, but like the up is down.
Did we even use our bumper yet?
No.
Dude, we forgot to use our bumper with the name, the strain.
We smoke a lot of weed.
We can still do the bumper. We'll do a shout out to the guy who got it right.
Show it. We should show it. Show the bumper. Show the bumper.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful, wonderful. Remember, we played Name That Strain, so let's show the strain, and then we'll show the bumper, and that'll give us a chance to taste the strain.
There you go.
Yeah.
We also got the international bumper.
We have international news coming.
Good shit.
When we get to the international news, we can use a new bumper.
We're not nanotech. We need a science.
Right now we're in nanotech.
Bumper. We need like a chemistry, sciencey bumper for nanotech.
They're trying to find a safe, reliable way to ingest THC without the guesswork. That was like the guest that we had on that talked about the nano emulsion. And so that's basically what we're talking about here. Again, nanotech is back. The goal has always been to make something that would be indistinguishable in a product on a Walgreens shelf. That is just a complete disconnect with whatever I think cannabis is, man. But, if this is what the future is, it is space weed after all. I was making these crude little gum tablets in my kitchen to just play around with. But cannabis is lipophilic, which means that it loves to stick to fat. Gum is just basically a wad of fat molecules, so the cannabis just stays stuck in there. Okay.
But this is why I saw this coming, dude, like the little Listerine strips, to have that dissolve in your tongue. In Washington, man, in the medical times, they infused everything, dude. There was infused toothpicks. There was infused, just everything, And so, like you're saying, your experiment with this, it was people now trying, probably since that time, how do you get this water soluble? That's the key ingredient, right? So it breaks down and gets absorbed into whatever component and have that even dosage. Oh, lost Tom. Tom's down. All right. How y'all doing? Welcome to my show now. I am God. All right. Let's see what else is going on. Oh, hey, Tom's coming back.
Hey, did I just die?
You did. Are you plugged in?
Yeah, but is this the same episode? Okay, now there's 229 people back. I was listening to Miggy discuss the future of weed, and suddenly I was dead.
That's crazy, dude. Yeah, no, yeah. Whatever. Here we go.
Yep. And then I hit refresh. Back to normal. Okay, so essentially, future of weed, Listerine strips. Moving on to the next story. Oh, it's our first international news episode. Let's hit that bumper. Himachal to legalize cannabis cultivation to boost economy out of the Hindu Times. Himachal Pradesh is a northern Indian state in the Himalayas, and they hope to earn millions annually by undertaking the controlled cultivation of cannabis to ease its debt burden during the COVID-19 outbreak.
Chief Minister
International Cannabis
of course. The cannabis produced in the state is high quality, and there is potential to undertake its controlled cultivation under the NDPS Act 1985. There are provisions for the cultivation, production, maintenance, and transportation of cannabis. Dude, money. That's it, brother.
That's right. That's right.
That's
And it says Himachal Pradesh is not the first state to legalize cannabis cultivation for medicinal purposes and industrial use to boost its economy. Neighboring, do you want to try this one? Let's try to pronounce this one together, everybody. I'm just going to create a small banner real quick, and then we could all try to pronounce the other.
I'm going to go Uttarakhand.
Okay, this is the other North Indian state near the Himalayas that has legalized cannabis. Uttarakhand? What did you say, Miggy?
I think it's Uttarakhand.
Uttarakhand. Yeah, I think Uttarakhand is correct. If you know how to pronounce it, say that in the comments, which of course makes zero sense.
After 2 decades of debate, the Hill state will draw up policy for the cultivation of cannabis, which is otherwise exploited for making narcotics. You know what's funny is I follow an Indian cannabis group in Reddit, and they make fun of their own weed because it is wild. It's not cultivated to be seedless. And so, you'd think the land of land races would have like the best weed everywhere, but it's grown that way. It's cultivated. It's made to, it's curated that way. The weed we have is not better or stronger. It's just curated better.
Well, there's that. And then there's also crosses, and then there's chemovars and chemotypes and all that type of stuff. And so like when they aren't trying to grow it out there and they are just kind of letting it go au natural, there's something to be said for that. But you would kind of still want, like if you're making hash, I would still try to pull males. I mean, if I was in Lebanon, like I've used the landrace stuff, because I've heard like if you go to Morocco and stuff, a lot of the seeds that are now being grown in Morocco have come in from Amsterdam. And so a lot of the land races that went to make the Moroccan hash are now really not being used, which is kind of a bummer when you think about it. But if you're trying to make hash, you don't want, like with sieves, you don't want like all the flower buds weighed down with all those seeds getting in the way, and also to like kind of screw up your harvest and maybe knock off the trichomes and stuff.
Yeah, no, I feel you.
That'd be interesting though. Like, was hash traditionally made with sinsemilla, or was it just all seeded out, biomass?
That is an interesting question. Like, how did like someone decide, you know what, I want to soak this in water? Like, for me, every plant I have is sacred. I don't want to waste it. I don't want to do a rosin press. I don't want to. I don't have that much weed. I don't grow. So when I do have weed, it's stuff I bought at the store, kind of like beer or juice. It's just something I have that I'm not going to do anything extra with.
Right. And then that's the other thing, like, seeds and stems with swaggy weed, despite having like a terrible terp profile, it was also, you'd buy the same weight, but you would get less because like you have more seeds and stem weight as less flower weight,
Yeah, exactly.
Obvious thing.
I wonder how that.
Okay, let's move on to another one. This one's great, guys. Marijuana banking bill is back. And so now it is bicameral once again. It's in both houses of Congress. Marijuana banking bill is reintroduced into the Senate with nearly a third of the chamber signing on as sponsors. As these bills have gotten out of committee and been resurrected with one Congress after another Congress, here's a historical quiz we could do. When was the first Congress that the Safe Banking Act was actually introduced in? 5 years ago, 6 years ago,
Again, that's why the process is so sexy.
Mm-hmm. Goes so slowly.
It's easier to put someone behind bars than it is to release them. This is freaking ridiculous. Like, how long was the campaign against for prohibition for the actual? How long did that take? I mean, it was like what a couple testimonies in Congress, and then like, okay, we're gonna fuck the rest of the nation. Like, well,
Pretty much. It looks like the first one might have been introduced in 2019. The Safe Banking Act was introduced in 2019, along with the MORE Act and the Marijuana Justice Act. The Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment goes back to 2014 that defunded the Department of Justice and the DEA from enforcing the marijuana laws against state-compliant medical cannabis programs. States Act was in 2018. It's a flagrant violation of the 14th Amendment. And then there's the MORE Act 2019, also Safe Banking Act in 2019. So that's not that old. I thought it would have been older than 2 years old.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually not as bad and bleak as I make things sound, but it's still 2 years. Like it's like the Schumer show. Like, don't tell me something's gonna happen. Don't tell me something. Right. Don't tell me something. Tell me something.
Yeah, but like, how long does it take for these types of big laws to become things? Like, a Civil Rights Act or something like that would be a good example or model. Like, how many years did that have to get reintroduced, not go anywhere, like in committee, and then like finally get out of committee, get the right administration in the office that would support it and like put it on its initiative? How many years did that take from like 1960 through like whenever the F was passed, like 65 or something like that? And so we're only in year 2. Like maybe if I hope the Safe Banking Act passes this year. But what if that's it? Like, what if it's 2019? Okay, well, maybe by 2024 it'll pass. 5 years down the road.
I think it's like these politicians playing a long game of just waiting until every state does it state by state. Like the bullshit semantic of like, we're going to let the states' rights decide. That's horrible.
Yeah,
but it's just ridiculous because we have Americans, human beings, losing time. I
right.
appreciate this thing that we do every 2 days a week. I appreciate talking to Tommy Chung this morning, and I got it pretty good. I'm not behind bars. It needs to be better, faster, not eventually, and not something's coming. Not a goddamn movie premiere. I don't need a goddamn theater trailer. I want to know how we can fix this and people's lives can get not messed with. Like
now,
period.
not like tomorrow, not when it all dies down, it's finally time to talk about this, but like now. And so, and I'm right there with you. And if you guys are fans of the show and your state comes up and they're actually going to take some actions, get it passed and then get it right. Because like our state in Illinois, it's not right yet. Like when the cheapest license that you can get to cultivate is $10 million and that's just to be competitive and have a shot at it, that's never ever going to put the illicit market out of business. If the cost of going legit is rolling the dice and $10 million, that illicit market that you're trying to regulate and turn into a job creator, a tax, revenue generator, and small business creator, you need to have like 100 plant license, like the Class A license in Michigan. And that should be like the micro cultivation license. Now, the one in Jersey looks like it's going to be more than that. It looks like 1,000 plants. And so they've defined it. It looks like a plant is like over 8 inches. And so like your veg plants would kind of count against your flower plants. So it would only be 1,000 plant operation, including all plants, it sounds like. And then you'd have to see how like mothers and clones are defined. And so like that makes like no sense. Why is that how you started it? So keep changing the law after it came out. I'm glad that craft grower is a thing. Let's have the micro grower be a license. Let's give away an unlimited number of micro grower licenses, and all they can really do is make 100 plants.
Yeah. I mean, and here's the thing, because that will help us, the individual, the citizen, the fellow American, because let's face it, that's the only policy we really talk about, that counts for us, because this is what we're focused on. This is the big fight. And think about it this way. Less than half of the states with legal markets, we talked about at the beginning of the year, made $20 billion in generated taxes last year. That's less than half of the states. And then how I talked about at the beginning of the show, when I said, the American dollar, buy local. So how much of that 20 billion actually stayed generated? So that's just tax money. So then the actual revenue from that was generated, how much of that stayed local? Not much. Probably went to all the, Canadian and Israeli investors.
Again, that's one of the things. Like, how is this going to play out? Because a lot of the publicly traded companies are relying on this $10 million entry line. Okay, like, what's the policy we're trying to achieve? Why are we doing these things when we're legalizing? Who's paying for it? I get that the large companies are paying for the legalization. We need to come together and pay for it more collectively, especially when they want these types of social equity access to the ability to be able to create a licensed lawful product. And if we want to be able to create a licensed lawful product and put the weed man out of business by making him go legitimate, you should set your regulations up to accomplish that end, and not set your regulations up in such a way that only the rich people get to create that. Is that another name your strain, or is that another example of the Jack error?
No, it's just an example of legal shit that I can buy. And I was just, this is ridiculous because in price point quality, like we talked about before, even if like a pen was written tomorrow, tonight, today, right now, and said, okay, everybody's out of jail, everything's done. The infrastructure is not there. The legality, your store is not going to be all over the place yet. I mean, there might be stores all over the place. Like when the Cole memo was written, people popped up and worked in that gray area, right? Because there's that weird gray area of like, all right, you have a cannabis store, you have a grow, you're not hurting anybody, but
you're not licensed, so we're going to take all your shit. And then Michael's asking about Texas cannabis news. You need to skip back like 30 minutes. We talked about it.
Yeah, we did. And they have a bill going through, not going through. It was in the floor or whatever. Look it up. But anyways, God damn it, dude. Yeah, I mean, just the fact that here in Washington, so like for Tommy Chong today, I went out of pocket and paid a lot of money for some weed. Like last week's show, I was given, got my first sponsor, Washington Bud Co. Thank you so much. That was, oh my God. And it was so funny. So they gave me about an ounce almost. And an ounce of really good weed is like oxygen to me, dude. Like I was just bowl after bowl. I'm at work. I'm still trying to figure out, I'm a smoke. I'm looking forward to this shit. Like,
and I leave that off the company's books though.
But I'm just saying, like, yeah, I'm saying I function as a citizen with really, really good medical grade, which I hate saying that word medical grade because it shouldn't be medical grade. It's just it's a plant.
No, this should be a medical grade, or like, because like unless you want to call it like royal dankness, but that's just like a made up term. Like, so like you could say a pharmaceutical grade, but then like pharmaceutical grades for like a drug. And so like what's the high end grade of weed? Is it dank grade? Yeah, USDA dank. Because like if prime can be steaks, can dank be weed?
But my point being is like with the markets and everything and the legalization is this really dank weed that I had to pay for out of pocket. So I went to look for Washington Bud Co. weed because I wanted to, out of faith and good, just still represent their weed and even if it was out of pocket. So they gave me about $200 worth of weed, top shelf weed. Smoked it all in 3 days because thought we were going to talk to Tommy and it was like really good at weed. When I bought something of the same quality, this quarter is $104. Like a quarter shouldn't be $104 of top shelf. Like this quality weed.
You are gonna like. I'm not gonna cut you off. I want you to continue your point, but I am gonna be pulling up Illinois prices so that I can just like start crying for you. And so go for it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, for top shelf though, I can find $40 quarters. I can find $50 quarters. But those quarters during medical times were this quality. And that's the thing is quality and quantity haven't reached yet what it used to be in that fair market because of all the fucking these guys. The farmer gets 25% tax. The store gets more tax. As a citizen, as a consumer, I have to respect like you have to price point things. And my normal go-to weed is about $30 or $40 a quarter. But because of Tommy Chung, I went and got top shelf. You know what I mean?
All right. And, well, I just flipped a link over to Lauren. So let's go ahead and let's do our price check. Hang on. There's a bumper that I want to use on this. It's kind of like the stock bumper. I want to use the stock bumper. Do we have the stock bumper?
Yeah.
So we're going to go to the price check. This is the recreational prices on Trinity on Glen. We have Blackberry Web. That is a 2-to-1 Revolution flower. 1/8, 10%, 11% THC, 18% CBD. You might be seeing this if your state is going to try to pass a THC limiting law. That is an eighth for $65. These are adult prices. That is before tax. And then you have some Face Melt OG by Nature's Grace. That's 1/8 of an ounce. That is 3.54 grams, $55. There is a Dermid Chem by Ingrown Farms, a gram for $20. G6 by Verano. That is a $65 eighth, everybody. Okay, do we have any quarters? Do we have any quarters, or is it all just in eighths? I haven't seen. Oh, wait, there's a quarter. A shake quarter. We can get a Nature's Grace Cresco. No, it's Crescendo is the name of the strain. Shake by Nature's Grace. It's a hybrid, 24% THC, 1 quarter, $65.
That's so fortunate, dude. I mean,
$65 for a quarter of shake.
I know. I got a good. I mean, like, as much as I'm not happy with the structure that we have recreationally, it gives the employees rights, and there's a lot of rights in the business and all this other shit that, I full enforce what you want legalization to be about, and law enforcement doesn't give a shit for the most part. Like, it's not perfect, but it could be better 100%. Home grows could happen. That'd be nice. But that's ridiculous though, man.
Well, you mean $65 before tax for a quarter of shake? Yeah. Is ridiculous. Well, let's end the show on something way less ridiculous. We did talk to Tommy Chong today, and Lauren, I think, has queued up a clip of the promo that we have for later. So let's share that.
Coming up the way you've been, used to like bullshit, like that's racism that you were dealing with, and then the Cheech and Chong, your guys' creation has like that drug stigma about it, but like you've always been surrounded by bullshit ignorance.
Always. I mean, that's what you look for. That's your opponent. They playing tennis. That's conflict. That's what made our. Other than that, there were like a dime a dozen. Guys get together that can play music. But how many guys could get together, look good, put on a show, play music, and then go in the parking lot and battle for a while? That made us special.
Stories like you've never heard of Tommy Chong. Like if you think Tommy Chong was just a comedian, I could not. But like we talk for the first half hour. Do not mention comedy whatsoever. And then when I finally bring it up, I'm like, so this funny stuff that I know you for. He goes, man, I learned all that in my 30s. And I'm like,
yeah. I mean, I know like it wasn't too older. I mean, he was a musician first, right? And then, but I didn't realize how poor he was. Holy crap. Like, I didn't realize you came up.
Stories. Let's leave it all. Like, I think we've built this up as much as we can.
Yeah.
But, the 284 joining us. Thanks so much.
Yeah, for sure. If you guys learned something today, give us a like and subscribe. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to have you around. You want us to tune in for that Sunday episode. It's going to be great. Once again, make sure you like, subscribe, keep up with all cannabis legalization news. We will see you on Sunday.
You.